In the early days, food and other essential supplies were transported through miles of wilderness. Consignments often took weeks to reach the plantations. Finally, in 1886, a business connection was established with a merchant in Bodhi. He agreed to provide food and supplies to the plantations and also to transport plantation produce to Tuticorin harbour for export. Boilers and other heavy equipment weighing many tons were shipped from England and hauled up the steep slopes. Soon the first tea processing factories were set up. In 1888, the Kannan Devan Planters Association was formed, its main objective being to organize and coordinate life in the plantations. New roads were opened and living conditions improved. The association continues to serve the interests of the planting community to this day. However, life in the plantations was no bed of roses. Eleanor Knight, the young bride of a planter, arrived in Munnar soon after her marriage. Enchanted by the beauty of the hills, she expressed a desire to be buried there after her death. She died of cholera 2 days later. Her husband honored her wish. Lacking a hospital, most planters personally doctored their employees using Dr. Short's book, Medicine in India, as a guide. But the ever-present threat of malaria and cholera claimed many lives. The appointment of an apothecary in 1890 was therefore a milestone in the history of the plantations. Doctors brought much relief to the community. Free medical care was provided for all workers. By 1894, 26 estates had been registered. However, a stagnant tea market adversely affected their profits, and the society's lands were widely advertised for sale in Indian and British newspapers. This drew Sir John Muir from Finlay Muir and Company, London, to Munnar in December 1894. The Finlay Group decided to invest in the high range, as the tea estates around Munnar are collectively known. The local planters were offered the option of working for the new company, and thus about 137,000 acres came under the umbrella of Finlays and their subsidiaries on a capital of £1.5 million. The new company was called the Kannan Devan Hills Produce Company, its area under tea being only around 2,000 acres then. Progress was swift under Finlays. The latest technology in communications, transport and energy was imported. In 1900, a ropeway, possibly the longest in the world, was built to link top station perched at 6,000 feet with the plains of Bodhi. In 1902, a monorail was installed, a rudimentary form of transport that consisted of a single wheel mounted on a metallic track with the other wheel on the road. In 1908, a magneto telephone system operated by crank phones was set up to connect all the tea plantations. It remained in use till as recently as 1995. Initially, the planters rode around on horses. The first motorcycle was introduced in Munnar in 1909. Soon the monorail was replaced by a light railway, all the machinery and equipment being shipped from the UK. In 1904, the Kannan Devan Hills Produce Company constructed one of India's first hydroelectric powerhouses at Pallivasal. A second powerhouse came up in 1910 at Periyakanal. In several other estates, power was generated using Pelton wheels. To cope with the food requirements of a growing workforce, the company opened a rice mill in Trichy, as well as a dairy farm at Kundalai for the benefit of the plantations. Land was also given to merchants to settle a bazaar in Munnar. Shops selling various goods and provisions opened within reach of the workers' settlements. To raise the tea estates, the pioneers had to recruit migrant workers from Tamil Nadu, who formed the backbone of the planting operations as local labor was unavailable. In order to create and retain a permanent workforce, the planters implemented certain essential schemes that are now considered welfare measures. A new plantation culture evolved, resembling in many ways life in the small villages of Tamil Nadu. Free housing was provided across the plantations. Not only were the workers encouraged to bring their families to live with them, the company offered jobs to their wives as tea pluckers. The plan was an instant success. Women proved to be efficient pickers, skilled at using their fingers to snap off the tender leaves. Today, female workers are predominant in the tea estates. 2 working members also double the income for each family. To enable women to work, the company introduced creches where small children could be left in the care of older women while their mothers were at the plantations. Maternity benefits and healthcare for workers were introduced as early as 1890. All these were the felt needs of the industry, and the planters accepted them as such, much before any legislation made them mandatory. Despite all these developmental efforts, care was taken to preserve the ecology of the tea estates. It is reported that when a new project was mooted, the company's head office at Glasgow queried, "How will this affect the rainfall in the district? Besides, where will the elephants breed?" This incident goes to prove the early planters' respect and love for the environment. It became a company policy that continues to this day. The planters realized soon enough that they could not depend forever on the forests to meet their fuel requirements. Having identified a fast-growing eucalyptus species, a small consignment of seeds was smuggled in from Australia in the stockings of the general manager's wife. Today, the stately and extensive eucalyptus plantations in the tea estates fuel not only the tea factories but also the employees' kitchens. As profits increased, the quality of life in the tea gardens improved. By 1915, some 15 fully equipped tea factories were operational, and Kannan Devan tea was a name to be reckoned with in the market. On 16 July 1924, unusually heavy rain was reported across the high range. The downpour continued for the next 2 days. Small streams swelled into raging torrents. Water levels rose along riverbanks. Finally, the waters unleashed their fury on the plantations. The receding floodwaters left a trail of utter devastation. Many lives had been lost. The very infrastructure of the plantations had been wiped out. But the resilient planters and their workers simply refused to give up. The railway had been washed away, but a second ropeway was built in 1926. The Kundalai Valley Ropeway, linking Munnar with Top Station, was completed at a cost of Rs 7.61 lakhs. In the same year, a veterinary department was opened to look after the livestock in the high range. In 1928, the Munnar Top Station Road was opened, enabling buses to transport passengers and mail. Buses also started plying to Udumalpet. The outlet road to Cochin was opened in 1931 and the Kumali Road in 1952. Thus Munnar was linked to Cochin, Coimbatore and Madurai. In 1940, the country's first arch dam was built at Sedu Parvatipuram, and in 1947, work started on the Madhupetti Dam with the assistance of British-Canadian engineers. The project was completed in 6 years